And good morning. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm publisher of ALXnow. It is just after 11 a.m. here on July 1st. Can you believe it? Oh, man, where is the year going to? But it is moving fast and it is quite busy. And we are very pleased and honored that Mayor Gaskins takes the time to join us every month. And Mayor, how are you?
I am doing well. I too can't believe that it is July.
Already July, it just the weeks are packed with so many events and news, and the fall's going to be here before we know it.
Yes, yes, it is. But I think that's also like one of the great things about our city. Every day there is something going on. So no matter what you are into, there's probably an event for you that is happening.
There is, and just a quick note in case you only watch this moment, there is a public hearing with City Council tonight, as well as a community cookout. So whether you want to be civil or civic, or whether you want to be civil and go have some hamburgers, as well as connect with some different departments from across the city, those two things are happening tonight. So it's always a busy calendar. I try to keep up with it. You can visit ALXnow, and I try to keep up with all the city meetings, school meetings, put it all in one place so people can plan their day. So keep an eye out for that on our website. Let's go back to last week, because I feel like last week was absolutely chaos. And I feel like this isn't the first time I've said that, but from the beginning of the week with the legislative meeting, as well as during the legislative meeting, the news about HUD and NSF coming out, all the way to Friday with Fox 5 DC being in town. I caught you on TV for a little bit. What else we have? We had Mom's Day out last week, city council meeting, as I mentioned. So a couple different things. So recap in your words, kind of the biggest takeaways. I know ARHA was a big one with the city council legislative. So let's start with next week and we'll work towards the future.
Okay. You mean start with last week?
Yeah, last week. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, first I was going to say, I would hope that whatever city event you're going to, you'll be civil. I just want to, it's not a choice. I hope that that is the energy and the vibe that we're going to all our meetings with. So let's see. The week kicked off. Monday was supposed to be the city schools meeting. Fortunately, we had to cancel because ACPS central office did not have AC. And so we had to postpone that meeting. Tuesday, we rolled right into the legislative meeting, as you mentioned. There were a couple big things that happened there. First, the manager gave a preview of kind of his recommendations as it relates to transportation for high school students at ACPS and the use of Dash. That'll be an ongoing conversation. I think probably the next year will be back and forth with the community, with parents, teachers, students, our entire school community, our school board, to really figure out what are the next steps on that proposal and what's the right fit for our community. We also, as you talked about, I think the bulk of the discussion was around whether or not the city should provide a moral obligation bond for the ALXnow project. This was a proposal that was brought to us by ARHA, really sort of looking at how do they come up with a relocation plan for the seniors at Ladre. And so this vote actually ended up passing, I think 7-0. For me, I felt comfortable taking this vote because I think we have an obligation to make sure that all of our seniors, whether those who are living at the ALXnow already or those coming from the Ladre, are able to age in place and able to age in high quality, affordable housing. But also we put forth a performance agreement that I think had 30 different conditions to protect the faith and credit and the positioning of our city. And I think that's really important in any deal that we do. How do we make sure that we are good fiscal stewards of the taxpayers' resources? That night, we also had a lot of conversation about boards and commissions. So our subcommittee presented on some recommendations for committees that maybe should change composition, others that we might consider sunsetting. And so that work will also go into the fall. We had an update from our standing committee review group, which was focused on really looking at our standing committees. So standing legislative bodies of the council. Are these a model that we would want to consider for the council to help us review legislation, do a deeper dive, and engage with the community in different ways before a proposal comes to council? Fast forward, while all of this is going on, we heard the news that the governor would be making an announcement in Alexandria. Didn't have much information on what that announcement would be until the following day when we, I think, got through a listserv that there would be an announcement with HUD at NSF. And so myself, city manager, and Stephanie Landrum from AEDP wanted to go because this is our city and we want to know what's happening in our community and really understand the details of those proposals. Like everyone else in the room, and Ryan, I think you were there, we learned that over 2,700 HUD employees would be coming to the city of Alexandria, specifically in the NSF building, and that there was no proposal for then what would happen to NSF employees, many of whom are Alexandria residents. And so much of the past week has been focused on how do we better understand how we got to this point, what this proposal means, but more importantly, how do we do everything we can to keep NSF here in the city? And so those conversations are still ongoing. The rest of the week, I think, then pivoted to a number of different meetings and conversations leading into our city's Pride Festival, which I think had a record turnout. And trying to think, there were also a few other events last weekend as well. So I'll pause there because I know that's a lot, but it definitely was a week that had many different developments happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was just going back to city council meeting. I wanted to point out that you had pointed out during the meeting that there were many protections, as you mentioned, over 30 for the ARHA project, which I thought was really good to point out. I also many times during the dash bus conversation, I wanted to note, and I try to give credit when it's due, that you made it clear to the people in the room many times that there was no decisions being made, that it was a discussion. And I wanted to point out that I think that was important, because if you just tune in or if you just get a soundbite, you might think that decisions are being made, but no decisions are being made yet. Regarding the HUD and NSF, that was a very interesting press conference. I had the opportunity to ask about there are other GSA properties in Alexandria where perhaps NSF employees can go to. It's been a week since the news leaked out. I'm just wondering, has there been any more? Well, has the conversation even started? Because as of last Wednesday, there wasn't even a conversation. But is there a conversation going now between the city and GSA or HUD or anybody?
Yes, so the conversations have started. That was a very interesting press conference. I think you had an easier time getting in than I did. But we'll save that for later. What I will say, though, was beneficial is it gave us an opportunity to meet a lot of the partners who were behind this proposal. And so we immediately followed up and said that Alexandria is home to NSF workers, not only the workers themselves, but to the vital mission of the National Science Foundation. And we want to make sure that that can stay here. And so we have reached out to everyone that we met in that meeting. We've also reached out to others that we know are involved in these types of transitions and said we want to be at the table. We're willing to offer, whatever property we have, but we want to be a partner in figuring out a solution. And that the way these things work best are when local, state, and federal are working together. And so let's figure out what that looks like, and have engaged our congressional delegation, state delegations as well, in order to try and fight to do whatever we can. So the conversations have started. No resolution just yet.
Yeah, I'll say, and you don't have to comment on it, but I found it very interesting that the governor was there as well as HUD and GSA. But there was nobody from congressional, and there was nobody from the city, and it wasn't it was easy to tell that people weren't working together on this, and that it was more about politics than policy, I will say, from the outside looking in. I wonder, and I'm not sure, because I've only been covering Alexandria for so long, but is there anything city council can do? Is it a letter? Is it a resolution? Is there anything you can do to kind of push it or secure NSF to try to make it harder for anybody to push NSF out to Maryland or something else?
Fortunately, no. I mean, I think we've made our position really clear. I mean, of course, we could do letters and resolutions. I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to come down to relationships and what we're able to offer. What I found I don't know if it was your question, but one of the reporters in that meeting asked, what's the likelihood that they stay here? And the gentleman from GSA said, if I were a betting man, I'd bet on Virginia. And something we have been very clear is we don't want to just bet on Virginia, we're betting on Alexandria, and that's where it needs to stay. And so every conversation, every person that we know that is engaged in this, every person that we're been able to loop in, that's all we continue to do and present any option or any possibility with the argument that, no offense to Maryland and DC or anywhere else they might be looking at, this is the best choice.
Yeah, and in your opinion, or with data, you think there is enough GSA open office space or Alexandria office space where they could house the 1,800 employees?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I guess, is there any kind of, I know from covering the press conference, there was no kind of schedule at all, but is there any kind of schedule from the city point of view?
We have not been updated on any schedule at all. We have reached out to ask those questions because there are implications. Anytime a entity comes into the city, there are implications from how employees get to and from work. What are the impact on our neighborhoods? How do we ensure other benefits are achieved from these types of transitions? What does this look like? To date, we have not been involved in any of those conversations.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see what comes next. I know the congressional delegation has sent a letter demanding, I think there was 16 questions on Friday,
Yes.
seeking many answers. So we'll continue to follow that. Over the weekend, or last week, on a kind of a more fun note, I saw you posting about it on social media, but Mom's Day Out. Tell me about this initiative and what it is, and is it a new series? Is this something? I know you have a couple different initiatives, and I'm just wondering if what this one's about.
So on Sunday, I hosted my third annual Mom's Day Out. Mom's Day Out came as part of a vision from a community walk that I participated in several years ago when I was a councilwoman. And I was on that walk and I had the opportunity to meet with a number of moms who lived in Princess Square. And they were talking about just the stress of working multiple jobs, the stress of violence in the community, other things that they were navigating and dealing with. And I asked them, how can council help? Like, what do you need from your elected officials? And the response was, sometimes you just need a break. Like, sometimes we just need a space for our mental health. And so that's where this was born. Each year it's been at a different location. This year it was at Fort Ward Park, and we had almost 85 women attend. And what we do is a number of small businesses are there, mostly who are moms in our community who have created their own businesses, and it's a space for them to showcase their products. We do an empowerment panel. So this panel was focused on blooming where you're planted, and how do you give yourself grace and find ways to thrive in a world that can sometimes feel completely chaotic. And then we provide other resources and tips for promoting your physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional health and well-being. And everything is free. So next year will be the 4th.
Excellent. Look, I will make note of that. I'm wondering if you have any updates. I know you've also been putting together or hosting meetings with the faith community as well as the youth community. I'm just wondering, do you still need people to sign up, or is it still open to the public?
Yes. So both are still open, and we'd love for people to continue to sign up and join. We had our most recent interfaith council committee meeting at the beginning of June, and we had about 25 different congregations participate. We also had several representatives from different synagogues, and then we had Islamic Relief USA. The focus of that conversation was a meeting with our public safety officials. So we had the sheriff, our police chief, and our fire chief, and really talking about sort of what our faith leaders need to know about the state of safety within our community, but also how they can better partner and support the work that our public safety professionals are doing. Our youth forum we had our last one in May, and it'll resume again in the fall. This one is intentionally meant to be drop-in. What I heard from young people when we were trying to design it is some of them have jobs, or they're the reporter at their school newspaper, or they are playing sports and they're busy. And sometimes signing up for something where you have have to make a very specific time commitment, they just can't do. And so this is, if you come to one, you don't have to feel like you missed something if you can't come to the next one. Every time we allow the youth to pick the topic and we curate it and create an engagement around what feels most pressing to them. So I can make sure to send you the dates, but it's always open and all are welcome.
Excellent. We'll make sure we spread the word on that. One thing I wanted to note is despite the heat on Friday and Saturday, Alexandrians showed up with some energy to the Fox 5 DC. Yes. I went and covered the Savannah Bananas over at the Dunkin', I guess it's called now.
Yes.
And also the Pride Festival. And just the amount of energy between those three events, just got a little goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I feel like the way people have showed up and showed out, the Fox 5 event, I think there were people already dancing at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Just excited to say, come here, come gather with us, come celebrate with us. And that we are a community that not only is welcoming, but we're a community that brings joy. We got great places to eat, great places to gather, good things to do, and a lot of really good resources to support people throughout the community. So I was excited. I just actually, before this meeting, I was talking to our race and social equity officer, and she said they're still working on the counts from Pride, but they think that this was one of their biggest turnouts yet. So.
Excellent. And I want to say that they asked you, Fox 5 asked you one of the toughest questions to name some of your favorite businesses. And I think you handled it pretty well, because that is an unfair question. I will call out an unfair question.
Very unfair. I agonized over it all weekend. Then I was like, oh man, I forgot this one and this one and this one. So.
Speaking of questions, I'll get to some questions that were submitted in a minute, but I just wanted to, there is a public hearing this evening, and I'm just wondering, what should people be keeping an eye on, or what are you keeping an eye on, or what do you want to hear from people about?
So I would say probably the piece that I would recommend folks turn into is in the other business section. We have several updates that are going to be coming to the council. One will be an update on our economic summit. So folks may remember that we held our summit in May of this year. And that was an opportunity. I think over 300 different community members came. Now we're going to get an update from the consultant team and from AEDP on what did they hear? What does that mean moving forward? And then when can the council expect our economic development plan that will become our guiding strategy moving forward? This is really, really, really important because one, council has said we want our legacy to be building our economic strength. So this is a council that is going to be hyper focused on what it looks like to begin to close the gap between, the taxes that we get from commercial real estate and then those that we receive from our property owners, really looking at new economic development opportunities. So I think this is going to be huge. Also, the last time we had an economic plan, I think was in 2009, and that plan led to things like the Potomac Yard Metro Station or the redevelopment of Landmark Mall. So it's really, really important to have a guiding star. The other update that we're going to receive, and I think as a public health nerd, this one's probably the one I'm most excited about, but the health department is going to be presenting on the state of health in our community and providing an update on the community health assessment that was just completed, as well as their plans for what are the next steps to help us address some of our most pressing health issues. I'm really excited about this because I think it's important for us just as a community to understand that. But I think when we are doing economic policy, when we're doing housing policy, transportation policy, open space policy, all of these things impact people's health and well-being. And so to understand kind of the North Star and the ways in which we can be more intentional about our policy making and our health outcomes, I think is going to be really critical moving forward. The last update is from the fire department. So I think folks may remember in April or May, we had an update from the police chief really talking about his plan for public safety and crime prevention. As a council, we're going to try and do more of these updates so that the public is hearing sort of what are the interventions we're taking, how are we responding. So we wanted to give the fire chief an opportunity as well to talk about his vision, any staffing changes or updates, and then different initiatives that the fire department is going to be doing. So those would be the main things that I would tell people. I think there's going to be a lot of great information that I would say if you can't come, make sure you go back and watch.
Yeah, and we'll be there. I'll pack a lunch or dinner, and we'll be there or watching from home. I'll see where the AC is a little cooler.
Yes.
Regarding the economic and development, I'm just wondering, trying to spin the whole HUD as NSF news to good news. 2,700 people coming into the city on a normal day when it's not displacing 1,800. Would that be considered good economic development?
Yes, in normal circumstances, we have been talking for a while, particularly in the Carlisle Eisenhower area, about the office vacancies that we have. We know that when we have full office buildings, that creates ripple effects that are really important for our community. That means people going to small businesses or restaurants in those areas. That means people who are, if they live in Alexandria, folks who are taking the Dash or riding Metro, folks who are walking through our streets, contributing to the vibrancy of what makes Alexandria a great place to live. And so strategies to fill our office buildings are really important and are a critical piece of our economic development plan. And I think that is why we have been very clear that the biggest win would be to keep NSF and to be able to keep HUD and other businesses that want to come locate here and continue to see that Alexandria is a great place to work.
This is probably getting too nerdy, but I know during much of the budget talk, it was talking about office space and commercial tax rate. If NSF stayed here, do you know if they pay taxes now in commercial taxes, or because they're government they don't? I'm wondering if the breakdown, if it will help at all.
I'd have to get you specific numbers because I know that there was in 2017, so a little before my time, there was a specific deal that was worked out in order to lure NSF here. So I'm not sure the specific breakdown. I do know that for most properties where we have federal tenants, it is through a lease. So like the GSA is conducting a lease. And so it is the actual property owner that is paying the taxes. But I can get you more information on what specifically looks like here. I do know we have also been asking questions as it relates to this deal because the tax incentives and the structures and things that we put in place for NSF to come here are tied to NSF. And now this is a new tenant. And so we are trying to figure out all of these pieces.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I was just wondering if it will actually help that commercial, the number that is talked about so often. A couple questions, and this one is pretty relevant from William. With all of the changes at Metro this week, will the city advocate for Metro bus riders who have seen their service disrupted by the new, less frequent and direct, better bus routes? There's a significant reduction in direct rush hour buses to the Pentagon for Seminary Valley, North Van Dorn corridors. What have you heard about Metro? Are you hearing about this? What should people do if they have issues with Metro? Should it be the city or should they be contacting Metro directly?
So I think it's helpful if you contact both. So we are engaged with Metro in several different ways. So many of my colleagues and myself included participate in different transportation related commissions and committees across the region, whether that's NBTC, NBTA, or even the Alexandria Transportation Commission. So we need to know your experience and the ways in which these policies impact you because we are providing direct feedback to WMATA. I know I most recently met with their director, Randy Clark, a couple weeks ago. And so anything that we can share about resident specific stories, impacts on their ability to get to and from where they need to go, please let us know. I know when the routes were being proposed, our staff did put together several letters to explain kind of what some of those impacts might be and our issues or concerns or questions that we had. So I'm also happy to make sure that we are elevating it to the appropriate people. But we do try and heavily coordinate on any of these changes or proposals that are happening. The best way to send something would be, I'll just put another plug for 311. The best way would be 311 because it'll allow you to send it not only to me, but all of the members of the council, but B, that means that our transportation staff is seeing it. And so they can see it right away and be able to get your response or get you connected to our right partners in the region.
Speaking of putting questions or concerns in front of the right people, I don't think you are the right one, but we talk about this every single month, it seems like. But somebody has a question about school boundary redistricting. And it's a valid question. And the recent boundary redistricting exercise performed by the school board showed that standing middle schools are woefully over capacity. How serious is the city in helping find a solution to this problem? What are actionable things happening now in regards to this? I will add to it, City Council obviously did not make any decisions about this, but what is City Council watching with this?
So I guess the part, let me take it in two chunks. So the first piece, as it relates to specific votes around redistricting, this is solely a school board vote. So this is not coming to the council. I know many of us have weighed in with our questions, our concerns. I know any person who has emailed me, I made sure to send it to my school board liaison as well as Ask ACPS, so that that feedback was captured and hopefully part of informing those decisions. What I will take, though, as part of the question, I think there was a piece in there about what are we doing about capacity. So at the end of our budget cycle not last year, it's just a few months ago. At the end of our cycle, I put forth a memo to the council. And as part of that memo, I stated that there are certain things that we talked about during our budget work sessions, but there was not enough time to go deep into what will the solution be. And part of that is school capacity. At the time, it was a question of, do we or do we not need a new middle school? What does that look like? And so we have specifically directed the city manager to come back to the council in the fall with some guidance and a plan for what we might do to reposition our CIP, or so that's our capital improvement plan, in order to be able to fund some of these much needed either modernizations or capacity related efforts. The other major change that we made is in our long range work plan, which is a plan that directs our planning and zoning, parks and rec, our CIP, and sort of these major departments that look at land use across the city. We have said that we want to work with ACPS on redoing the long range educational facilities plan. This was a plan that was done years and years ago, but really mapped out the vision for what each of our schools need and where the additional capacity that we need. And so that is also going to be coming through, along with a study of all of the city's real estate and land holdings, so that we have a better understanding. So I guess what my hope would be that you take away that the council sees this is serious, this is urgent. We want to figure out how we can help with a capacity solution, how we understand where our growth is targeted and where we're moving as a community, and then what that means for our schools. And to get there, we are being intentional by doing the planning, getting the research, getting the understanding we need about the sites and spaces that are possible, so that hopefully we are in a position to move forward these projects in consultation and collaboration with our school board.
It'll be really interesting to watch the economic summit update because a lot of this also, all the conversations mix and mingle. But I'm just thinking, even with the HUD, let's say we can keep NSF in the city, bringing 2,700 more people. Well, let's say half of those people decide to move to Alexandria, so is that, and then another half of those have children, and then what does that do to school capacity? And all of these things, I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but can never be set in stone necessarily, because one big economic development change or one big apartment complex change could add dozens of students to one school district.
So two things. One, first and foremost, all of this needs to be coordinated. And that's part of why I ran. I feel like the background I bring in both public health and urban planning is being able to see the intersections between those different decisions. And I think there's a lot of things we know that can be helpful to how we plan. For example, if we think about economic development, the areas where there's the most land and opportunity are Potomac Yard and then the Eisenhower corridor. If we know that those are areas where we want to see development, then we also need to know what does it look like for then the schools that are near those areas, and how do we plan and support that. So I think there's a way to be very strategic. I'd say the other interesting thing, though, is you mentioned about new development and students. What we actually find in the city is that less of our student generation comes from the new apartment buildings. What you see is actually our older housing stock that is more affordable. It may be a 1 bedroom, but that 1 bedroom has 6, 7, 8 people. or it has multiple children there because that's the most affordable option. And so we also need to be not just looking at new growth and what's happening, but I think having a better understanding of the existing community, what is going on in some of our older housing stock, and how do we support people so that they are in housing options that work for them, they are in housing options that are ultimately more affordable, and then they're connected to resources that keep the housing safe and high quality.
Dog days of summer, and somebody has a question about dogs. I think dogs come up. It's a dog city.
Yes.
Last month, the city highlighted, this comes from Richard, the city highlighted existing leash laws for dog owners. Of course, the practice of walking dogs in neighborhoods and parks appears to continue unabated. Has the city issued many fines to dog owners for failing to leash their dogs? Does the city plan to do anything more to combat this behavior? I don't expect you to have the number of fines that have been issued, but is this something that you or city council is hearing a lot of? Do you have any updates?
So I don't have the number of fines, so thank you for giving me grace on that. What I can say is that council made what we directed the city manager and staff is that this is an issue in our community. It's something we were hearing through 311s, but also I think we had several people come and speak at our Saturday public hearings that we needed to do more to enforce our leash laws, and that there needed to be sort of a greater effort on fines and education. And so you may have seen, I think the person mentioned the post that was on the city's website. In addition to that, outreach went out to all of our civic associations, outreach went out to our apartment buildings. There were pop-ups at different dog parks and other places within the community. We are trying to do an all-out and sustained blitz to say, at the end of the day, like, this is against the law. Like, dogs are supposed to be on a leash. And I say this as a proud dog mama, but we have to make sure for the animal safety, but also for the health and safety of people in our community, that we are enforcing these laws. So you're going to see a lot more education happening around this. I think the goal is to even do more social media and video campaigns and education events, but most importantly, to do the enforcement to help kind of deter the behavior that we're seeing.
Let's see here. Michael, I don't know where you're going with this question, but please tell us the amount of percentage of the budget is not public safety and roads. I'm not sure where he's going with that, but let's play minority or majority. Is the majority of the budget focused on public safety and roads, or take it for what it's worth?
So what I would say, so 1/3 of our budget goes to ACPS. I would then say that in order to get a full breakdown, if you go to alexandriava.gov and you click on management and budget, there are a set of links right underneath. And I think one is called the budget summary. So I don't have it right in front of me, or else I would give you the exact numbers. But on the first or second page, there is a pie chart that has a breakdown of every single chunk of within the budget and sort of what percentage is allocated. And so that would be the best place that I could direct you to get the specific numbers. I don't think that the bulk is public safety and roads, but I don't want to misquote any numbers.
Excellent. I'm going to roll these two questions into one because I think they're kind of the same question. Miles asks, my residential tax just went up $1,200 a year, $1,253 a year. Does the city have an alternative to putting the payment for its budget on the backs of homeowners versus alternative sources? The arena at Potomac Yard might have been a good solution, but is no longer available. Is there any concrete plans for tax relief to homeowners? And then Susan over here says it's about quality of life in the city. What about people who own property and pay taxes? What is the city doing to keep quality of life there? Many neighborhoods are being inundated with heavier traffic, more chaos, and so forth. So it goes to a lot of what we talked about. Maybe we didn't spell it out that exact way with the commercial tax base and development, but kind of what is city council doing to make sure that tax rate doesn't go up? A lot of it was assessments, by the way, Miles. There was actually not a tax rate increase, but just quality of life and taxes. Easy.
So, Yes. So while we did not raise taxes this year, we know that a number of people still saw an increase because the value of their home went up. I think this goes directly back to why I keep encouraging people to turn into the Economic Summit update. At the end of the day, in order to close that gap, we do need a big swing. And while the arena may not have worked out or been the right fit for our community at this time, we're going to have to be thinking about what are those bigger, larger scale economic development wins that allow us to generate the types of resources and new taxes. For example, being able to have an entertainment use means that there are tickets that are charged, there are admissions taxes, there are other types of revenue that might be able to come into the city that are not all paid by people who live here, but hopefully people who are coming in to come for that experience and then they're leaving. And so that is critical. I would say in terms of specifics, what the council has asked for is that as part of this plan, we don't have like big bold goals that say like reduce the tax rate, but instead we have these are the types of policies that we want to pass or the types of projects we need to do so that it's almost like a checklist where we can show progress on like these are the actions we're going to be taking and this is the type of revenue that's going to be generated and here's the change that you're going to see in the community. I think the quality of life piece is also really related because any type of project that we're going to do will also have impacts. That might mean more people coming into our community. If our first response is, well, we don't want more traffic, then we're also saying we don't want more some of these projects, but then we can't in the same breath say, but then we also want lower taxes because it goes back to it all being connected. And so I think the role of the council and the work that we do with the city manager and with staff is then how do we make sure these things are coordinated? If we're talking about the traffic impacts, how are we talking about signal timing? How are we talking about more transit investments to help get people into other options besides just their cars? How are we talking about, how are we talking about sort of making different neighborhoods that aren't currently more walkable? So there's things to do within those communities and you're not driving and cutting all throughout the city. So I would say, I don't think we think of it as an either or in terms of quality life or development. If it's not a place where people want to live and stay and raise a family, then it's also not a place where development wants to happen. And so the things that make our quality of life great have to continue to be protected. That's why you see the investments we have in education, in public safety, in parks, and other pieces that are a part of that overall comprehensive vision of like why we love our city.
I was once interviewing a CEO of a convention and visitors bureau, not for here, but for up in Rhode Island. And I'll never forget, he mentioned that, you know, if you want to, everybody can help with the tax rate, everybody can help with the quality of life. What you do is every single person you talk to, you have to be a cheerleader. Every resident in Alexandria has to be a cheerleader. If you know somebody that wants to host a holiday party or is coming to DC, tell them to do it in Alexandria. You know, whatever it may be, you know, if they're looking to move to DC, tell them to move to Alexandria. So everybody you talk to, if somebody's considering having some work event, you know, if they have that in Alexandria instead of in DC, that helps the city a little bit, you know, with those extra taxes and things like that. So I've never forgot that every single day with every interaction we have with somebody that's not from here, we could be helping the overall budget and taxes.
And I will say some of the things we do, they're not always like the big press-worthy event, but I think there are a lot of other intentional things that don't get lifted up. So for example, a couple months ago, myself and members of the staff, we met with a large number of trade associations within the city. Alexandria, I think we joke that we're like the trade association capital of the world. We've got hundreds of them. And so many have been here for 50, 60 years. We had a conversation that just said, first and foremost, we thank you for choosing Alexandria. Thank you for whatever is the reason that brought you here in the first place. And we want you to know we want to keep you here. And that was a conversation where we were able to talk to them about, you know, why host meetings here? What are different space options? Maybe your association used to be 100 people and now it's 10. So what does it look like for you to still stay here, even if you don't need your property in the same way? What are the connections or opportunities for networking or engagement or giving back to the city that we can help support you, but also you continue to be a great partner in the community? That's really important because if they are hosting meetings here instead of National Harbor, that's hotel stays, that's local businesses that are benefiting from the shopping and retail that happens, that's restaurants that are benefiting. Another example, we had a meeting that it was actually a small business that curated, and it was with different ambassadors who are in DC, and we brought them over and we said, you know, when you're hosting small meetings or when you're hosting luncheons, you know, it's a great place, Alexandria, and here's why. And so it's things like that, I think, that are also important pieces of an overall strategy. That's like, we need a big win, but we also have to keep the people, keep the businesses here that are here, and we have to keep finding new ways to get business to all of these different parts of the puzzle.
Over the years, I've learned that many people, no fault of their own, don't understand what the Convention and Visitors Bureau does. And Visit Alexandria is here, and they do a great job. But, you know, many of the things we're talking about, if you know a company who is looking to have a conference in DC, all you have to do is put them in touch with Visit Alexandria. Visit Alexandria can tell them every single hotel room in the city and what their capacity is for conferences and things like that. So just keep that in the back of the mind. Visit Alexandria is great for promoting tourism, but they're also there to make these things happen. So that's my plug for conventions and visitors bureaus, I guess. So recess. There's going to be a recess coming up for City Council.
Yes. Tonight is our last meeting before recess.
And you'll reconvene in?
September.
Okay. Excellent. And of course, City Council will be busy in the meantime. Yes.
While there is a recess, I'm sure you will still see many of us at events throughout the summer, and you'll still see us engaging in different ways. I know the work of the city still continues, so a big thing that we will continue to do is scenario planning as we continue to navigate the impacts of federal administration changes on our budget, on federal workers, tariffs on our projects. And so there will continue to be a lot of work throughout the summer so that council can hit the ground running in September. I think in the fall, we are going to be hearing and voting on the green building policy update. We'll be hearing and voting on the housing master plan 2040. We will be, I think there's 2 town halls that will be coming up. We will officially vote on the city hall renovation project. We will, again, another update, I think, on the waterfront flood mitigation project. So there's a lot of work that'll be happening over the summer so that we're able to take care of the city's business in the fall.
Excellent. One more plug is I noticed that there are a lot of boards and commissions that are looking for openings. Certainly, you can apply now. You won't, because I applied it for a board once during this time of the year. You won't hear it until City Council comes back. So if you don't hear, it's going to happen at a meeting. But boards and commissions, as well as lots of jobs with the city. I noticed that the job board is pretty full. So if anybody is looking for a job out there, Mayor, did we miss anything? We could talk for hours, but did we miss?
I guess just an upcoming event that I would encourage folks not to miss. I know everyone will be celebrating this weekend, but next weekend on the 12th is Alexandria's birthday. And so we will have our big annual event with council cupcakes, our poet laureate, cannons and fireworks. So I would just encourage folks, save the date. We'd love to see you at Orinoco Park on the 12th.
Have you started making the cupcakes yet?
Fortunately, I don't have to, because if it was up to me baking, I don't think people would want to eat them.
Who would be the person on city councilor that would be the best baker?
Oh, wow. Such pressure. I don't want to offend any. I'm going to go with Councilman Kirk McPike.
Okay.
I don't know if he bakes, but I know that he loves to cook. And so I'm going to take that as a sign that potentially he's good in the kitchen.
All right. Well, we'll see what he has to say about that. I'll get him on the record for it. Excellent. Well, Mayor, we appreciate you taking the time, and lots of information there. Much of it is available on the city's website, and we appreciate you taking the time. We will talk offline, but maybe we'll have a recess from this in August as well to give you a little bit more time off as well. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions.
Yes, we'll see you tonight. Bye, Mayor. That is Mayor Alyia Gaskins. We thank her for taking the time with us, as she does every single month. If you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it again, want to share it, all available on ALXnow.com. Thanks for watching.